Looks like we're up. Alright. Welcome back, Forge fans. This is just another weekend stream. So, it's a pleasure meeting you here again in 2021. Hopefully it starts off being a good year. But we're going to get started, so let's get to it. Turn on some music. That's not good. It's 138 pound anvil. It might be out of propane. That's no fun. I might have to pause the stream and go get some more. Let's leave it open today. Yeah, I heard sputtering. Yeah, unfortunately, Forge fans, it seems like it's sputtering, so that means it's low on propane. And unfortunately, that means I have to go get more. That's fair. No, there should be plenty in there. I hear it sloshing. It might be just cold. Well, needless to say, we're going to try and see if we can make it work. Thank you, Bunny. until this propane eventually just gives out. It feels like there's still plenty left in there. But I'll have to probably exchange it later today. I don't know what that one is. It was gifted to me by a man who passed away last year. Brand is Central Machinery, so it's possible. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go and grab my coffee. Getting nice and hot finally. Be a little bit more before she gets all the way there. So we got, please make that same statement verbatim, but in bed with Bunny. Yeah. Forging the Bun Bun. Yesterday's stream, we made stuff, working on stuff like this, getting a profile on here. It's still got a little bit of work left to do on it, straighten out and whatnot. Prepared to remove a piece of here, and maybe as soon as I can get a jig made, I can bevel these easier. There's some thin spots and some thick spots, so I'm gonna have to even that out as best I can without hogging it and making it worse. It's a little bent, but we can fix that with a little bit of vice work. Let's go ahead and throw her in. Now this one is going to, I believe it was Gulf City Cartographer when it gets done. It's still got some work as well. It's not terribly far off the mark where it needs to be. But we'll get that going. This is the riverboat knife. It is way thicker than it needs to be. A little crooked, but we can get it there. It's just a matter of getting it back into shape. Yeah, out the way. I can do two on one side, but it's going to take a minute for them to heat up, so prepare to be bored. But yeah, for the future of the channel, well, the shop, I should say, the channel's not exceptionally important at all. Like I said yesterday, We're going to try to move this into the carport slash garage once I box it in. So a little bit over time, we'll start framing it up, getting walls built, insulated, and have a friend of mine help me wire it so that way we can have all the lovely lights we have now. And it will probably change how the acoustics are inside the shop, but once we get it full of all the shit I need in there, it should come out better. It will for now. I'm confident it'll have that tearing issue that Yoda told me about last time from the other stream. It'll take a minute for that probably to be a thing. But while those heat up, because it's going to take a, no pun intended, hot second, I'll field any questions y'all have. So feel free to ask away while we wait for that to heat up. Eventually in the shop I also want to install some speakers so I can listen to music when I'm working there, non-streaming. And the only way I can listen to the music I like, since it's all going to be copyright claimed if I did it anyway. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, please like and share if you enjoy it. Subscribe if you enjoyed this or you're going to use this as something you listen to in the background. Hopefully, eventually, I'll have a better mic so I don't have to like project as hard towards the camera. Oh yeah, they're getting there. Fuck yeah. Welcome to the stream, those who just joined, or those who are just now tuning in to listen to in the background. Hope you like it. If not, that's cool. Sweet, we got 4 people watching. That's awesome. So it won't be a long stream again, most likely, given the fact I'm probably going to run out of fucking propane before the end of it. But next time, as soon as I set up a schedule for me to stream, most likely going to be on like Friday nights, Saturdays in the day, in U.S. Standard Central Time. Yeah, that's probably because I'm a really small channel and YouTube doesn't give a fuck about me. Most likely is the case. We're gonna have so much heat loss. Generally, whenever you hammer, you want to make sure you do exactly the same thing on both sides to kind of keep it even. Like instead of taking this to the vise, as long as I keep it even, I can get it to do just about what I want. So I straighten most of it out. The tip needs a little bit more straightening. So we're just going to put it just enough in there. And this cold anvil face is not going to do me much favor with heat disposition. Heat loss. So, let's turn that around. Oh shit. Alright, so when you drop your piece of hot steel, this is a forged safety tip for you. Don't try to catch it right away. Just let it land, let it stop clattering, and once it's safe to do so, immediately pick it up with your tongs. You don't have to worry about it letting it cool. If you want to let it fall and cool off before you get it with your tongs, that's by all means, that's fine. Whatever's safe to do. You will drop stuff, that does happen. Then I don't know, Bunny. I guess YouTube just doesn't like me. Squatting I'm doing is trying to keep the tongs level with the face of the anvil, so while I'm working everything stays right about on point. And if you can see that in the camera, it went from hot to not as hot really quickly. Like I said yesterday, the more I work the metal on here, the faster this face heats up and the less heat I lose. Well, thank you, Vash. I appreciate it. In the grand scheme of things, I just hope that you enjoy the work I do. And since the anvil face is still so very cold, when it pulls the heat out of the knife body, it transfers it to the face. It takes longer and longer for that to heat up until it gets warm enough that we don't lose a lot of heat. But also because the thickness of the metal where I'm about to be hitting is taking more heat in. It takes longer for it to get to that workable point. And once I lose it back into the face, it takes that amount of time to just about get back there again. But the flatter I get it, the faster it'll heat, the faster I can get back on the anvil. Yes, you did call me the Bob Ross of forging. We don't have mistakes, just happy accidents we can learn from. Thank you for sharing it on your Twitter. Like I said, just share it wherever. I don't mind. Yeah, YouTube doesn't like anyone unless it's making them a fuckload of money. Bunch of vibrations from my phone from all you lovely people shilling my stuff and subscribing and posting. All right, looks like we're ready for this one. Let's go on and grab it. So I took out the other one because I was getting it really thin. When I take that one underneath where I have my improvised cooldown spot, that one just needs to go straight to the grinder after this. So I'm going to let that go for now. And once I kind of decide on what it's going to be and start hand filing, I might just do videos on that while I do the process. So the main forging I'll do here on the stream, and then all the touch-up and small parts I'll do on videos. I won't record polishing or the sanding down, because that's a lot of hours of just sanding away. So I don't want y'all sitting there watching me watching TV while I polish these. Nice crack. I guess so. Thank you. Well, people say that's my nicest asset. But moving right along. Watched a lot of my own videos, not for look at me doing the thing, but more like let me see how I am doing it from a different perspective, so I can see if there's any teachable moments, so I can help anyone who wants to get into this and do it better for them, as well as to make sure I'm hammering right, hammer technique and tone work. So all that comes down to is making sure that everything is being done correctly, or as correct as I can get right now. So there's that. And on an offhand thing, I really wish I had a better apron. This one's nice and all, but it's like kind of meh. It does the job, so I shouldn't really complain too much. It's pretty cheap. For the lapel mic, yeah. I do have a subscribe star with a few bullshit, not bullshit goals, but a few goals. Like this forge I'm using, this right here, this is a loaner from my buddy. He's currently deployed right now, so I'm using his. A lot of my old videos are from that shop, and I would love to get my own, but he can't use it. It's a shame for it to sit in the cold and rust. So that's what we're doing with that right now. I've had a couple of people watch here at the shop. They were new to the area, they saw my ad. So they were quite curious to watch, and of course I was more than happy to oblige. And they thought it was funny, I still referred to very hot steel as too cold, while it's still a couple hundred degrees hot. Well, one's supposed to eventually become a Bowie knife, the other one's a broke-back sax, one that's underneath in my cooling area. That's I don't know what the fuck to call that one. It'll be whatever it is when I finish. It's sort of like one of these knives. It's just meh. I just fucked around, made this. It's a little
crooked, as you can tell, because of when I quenched it, the tank bent up, and so it still works, it's sharp, and I mean, it's comfortable. A lot of that stuff is also optical illusion from the grip, so as long as I keep the grip right, it looks like it's in there. And I can see now, that I didn't see then, is that the blade is slightly bent, not bent, but tailed out that way a bit. But it still cuts. I mean, it needs a home. I don't know anyone who wants it, but it is what it is. Well, I'm glad you enjoy it. Down to be in line with that. On this one, soaking up as much heat as it can. What I'm doing is removing scale buildup, so if this cools down, it'll have a patina from the water from the burning off the propane. Yeah, well, I also have to get something that helps me press that metal a lot better. Drawing out a lot of the steel takes a lot of time and effort, and I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, but it is something that will take some time to make. A lot of these knives are easy. I've picked longer knives because they take more effort. Smaller knives are easier. That one's about 6, maybe 7 inches long from the blade where it should be, from the spacer to the tip. So it's about 1 foot long altogether, and that does take some more time because of the length, time to heat, time to treat, stuff like that. But I genuinely love what I do when I can do it. One thing you really have to do a lot is double check your blade to make sure things stay pretty fairly straight. There are a lot of smiths they can eyeball it by just looking like way far away. I'm still at the point where I have to find it. A lot of the knives I used to make, I could see a lot of problems that I couldn't see because I was so new. And now I'm getting to the point where I notice my flaws more. And that's not me so much becoming better at the craft, so much as I'm just getting better at noticing the small issues that I find in the blades while I make them. That makes me take more time. Now, if I just did stock removal, that would be easier. I mean, I'd be taking out almost all of these steps just on the grinder, then it goes into heat treat, then the quench, and then I polish it and I'm done after sharpening. process. I like hand forging over machining, mostly because the tools are relatively simple. I feel like you have to be just as precise with your hand forging than you do your machining, but that's just personal preference. I prefer handcrafted over made. Exactly, Bash. That's why I watch my old videos, so I can go, okay, I see where I fucked that one up, or this is something I didn't see that could have been a problem. Much like when you see me hitting it when it's just getting too cold to actually work, I try to do small touches, because if it's too cold and I hit it too hard, I can cause micro fractures, so whenever I put this under the quench, it could shatter. Because they found that crack and that crack grew. Right now, this is just touch-up work. Work on that tip, I guess. We can still work on that. No, we need to keep that beefy. Yeah. Might start a new piece before too long. I'm not sure yet. Well, I got a piece. It's dirty. It won't help anything if it's dirty. It won't really hurt too much. But a lot of your work, you want to use cleaner metal. Like this is all rusted and stuff, and it'll get buried in the patina. Sometimes you just kind of got to beat it into shape. So here's a fresh blank piece of stock steel. If I remember correctly, that should be 1080, 1070. Fairly thick. I think it's like a quarter of an inch, maybe 3/16. Here doesn't need a lot of force to it, and every time I hammer it like that, it's going to push the tip up, and it's a little too cold to push back down. I can see a little bit of a cold shut, but that'll come out in the grind when I finally give it the final touches. And for the most part, you can see on here where I've started to taper it. I mean, it's harder to see in this light, I guess. But I've started to taper it from the back to the front, and it's slowly going to get tapered all the way to the shoulder back here. So it's going to taper up the rake, which is this front slope. That's the rake, around in here. And once it gets to the shoulder, it should taper down pretty nicely. We'll go from there. For now, that's going to go underneath and get nice and cold. And we'll work on getting this piece nice and hot, start hammering out something. You can start on either end, honestly. I try to start with the tapering, hammering on the back of the slope or the clip, whatever I'm really making, and work my way from the front to the back so I can start it. And then from there, it's just hammering from the back or the middle to the front. It's just kind of one of those things. Like this one, I'm going to start making the tang so it's more manageable in the tongs. And then from there, we'll start working on the main part of the body once we figure out what the steel wants to be. So I'm going to have to change out tongs to accommodate this wider piece. I could always use some new ones. I don't mind making my own tools, but I prefer to have someone else who's been in the craft a lot longer make them. It's not I'm worried that I won't make it good. It's that I prefer someone who has a steady hand and an eye for it before I get my hands on it. So, I'm just going to start trying to crush this down a bit. it's just a, what, 3-pound sledge? It's been a while, I don't remember. Man, it's heavy enough to start moving steel. Alright, back to it, scrape off this excess burnt, keep it fairly clean. Let's get to it. Too long to flip it. I need more control, so I'm going to move that over and then move to this one. This one's the 2.5-pound cross peen, so we'll move to that. It's an E-swing. Yeah, well, I'd rather not. But the tips are, when you start off, is to have a basic tool. You want a hammer that's not too heavy in your hand, something you can control so when you make those blows, they're consistent. And if you're going to start off, I'd recommend getting a long piece of stock so you have something on the back end you can grab with a gloved hand because it will be hot. And then figure out whether you like hammering over top, side, or vertical to it, or horizontal to it. Because you'll find that you like working on an anvil in different ways where it's conducive to you. It's a lot about positioning, having anvils of the right height. I can refer you to a lot of good books to read. Now you should start seeing it belly out on the bottom. Because with this 2.5-pound, I'm using the drumming hand or grip, I guess is what they call it. I think that's what I read. But now they got it started to get it in a little squish so I can hold it because my tongs are barely holding this. I need some wider mouth tongs or tongs built for square stock. This has got a cross section in it that's meant to hold things that are slightly already beveled. Welcome, Joker. You missed my New Year's stream. Oh. Well, there's the Blacksmith's Primer, the Intermediate's Guide, the Complete Blacksmith's Guide, which is old information, but it's very good. It's very dry. There's the Handguards, Sheaths and Scabbards guide, which is really good. I'll have to get back to you on the authors. I think I might do a stream where I'm going to list off a lot of good resources. There is the, you could go, if you're in America, go for the Blacksmith Artisans Association of North America, but they're more of an art style, so they go for like cool sculptures, different stuff like that. So, I mean, they're still a good resource, but it's become more of a magazine subscription site now. They have schools. You can find hammer-ins in about any state you go to, and, well, they're good to go there. A hammer-in is like a church lock-in, sort of, but for blacksmiths, where we all get together in this little spot and we start hammering out some projects, or we go to a seminar and listen about the new methods and techniques or different metal alloys. It's all very exciting for those who want to get into the craft. And for this, it's all about finding spots that you like. There we go. I'm getting better at that. And you'll find, like, with scale raking, this is a usable brush, but there's actual scale removal brushes that are way better. That's fair. I still read the books. I've finished most of them. I did buy the Master's Guide because there's a lot of advanced techniques in it that I could glean some information to pull it back to my level. And it's always good to reference the bladesmith's guides, because blacksmith is just a general term. And the longer you start doing this, you'll find yourself searching out a lot of different resources in the sense of knowledge. Like, there's a lot of good books that are from blacksmiths and bladesmiths from like India, from China, Japan, Germany. The one tip I could give you is find a region that you like the most and then try to make the blades from there. Or if you're interested in bladesmithing. If you're interested in blacksmithing, I recommend starting to find someone who is an actual blacksmith, not anything specific in a specialization like bladesmithing, because they have a very vast, a wide array of things they make, such as tools, nails, decorative pieces, and so on. Farrier can teach you a lot about blacksmithing as well. So it's important to not discredit. Come on now. Tongs won't hold. It's starting to twist on me. So we're going to straighten that out here in a second. I'll put it in the vise. But it's important to go ahead and find anyone and everyone who does the metal work by the old way, because they have something to teach you. Be it hammer control, fire control, heat loss control, it all comes back down to you controlling the aspects. I say I want to see where the skill takes me, but I don't let it just get away from me. It's all about controlling what you can and accepting the things that you can. But it's also about knowing where you can go with the steel you're working with. You'll eventually get knowledgeable. So when I'm rattling off a series of numbers and letters, you'll know what metal I'm working with, or what metal that's conducive to be, put together with another set of metals. And you'll find yourself knowing about where I'm going with my metal almost as soon as I do. Much gooder. So as soon as I get this tang worked down enough, because you can comparatively see that it's gone down quite a bit in this short amount of time. Once it's workable and I can grab it with my tongs easier, I'll start working on the face of the blade and the spine. And we'll probably work down something. I'm not sure what I want with it yet. Oh, and when you cut your steel, you want to make sure you cut it evenly with your angle grinder, or if you have a metal shear, even better. Make sure it's nice and flat. That one's got a little bit of a wobble in it for where I was cutting, had to back away, and it didn't land exactly in the groove that I made. So when I start hammering that face in with the tip or the blade, it'll be a slightly bit more of a trial to get it back to where it needs to be. And eventually, if I do get the bigger shop, I'll be able to have at least 2 students. I can teach the basics, I know them, and I'm more than happy to, because it'll probably be like a 3-day workshop. I'll get them indoctrinated into the mindset of how to hammer, when to hammer, too hot, too cold, to know when the steel might cook, when it might not. Because with carbon steel, if you leave it in there too long, it starts to cook off the carbon. And that is no mas. Get that shoulder about even. Flip it. Now with a heavier hammer, control gets a little bit away from me. I'm ready to admit that at any time. But using it helps me move thicker steel quicker. And anything can be cleaned up on a grinder or a little bit more effort on the anvil. So even when you think that you fucked up real bad, you can always bring it back. Nothing's truly lost, and if you really feel like you fucked up and lost it, all you need to do is go grab a setup to make a smelter. So you can take that metal that's all fucked up, mangled, toss it back into a pot, let it melt down, and then maybe even try to introduce more carbon into it and try to reinvigorate the steel. There's a lot of different methods, and smelting is its own study. I mean, like everything I'm talking about has like its own little genre that goes to it. Like, everybody thinks it's just brute force and hammering around. It's a field of study, a schools of its own. Yes, I don't know Spanish. I got a C in high school. C.
The backwards C.
Alright. Hey, welcome, Blackout. And another very important thing that I can tell you is to always make sure you have plenty of water. I don't sweat nearly as bad because I got these barn doors open in front of me, so they're always blasting me with a little bit of coolness, which also takes away from the steel's heat, which is a pain in the ass from time to time when it's a nice windy day. But it does also help keep me cool. I know you're busting my chops. Like I said, I like to keep these fairly lighthearted. Talk about what I know, and you can always fact check me. If you don't think I know what I'm saying, go and look it up. Come back to me, and I'll be appreciative. I'm a student in the art of this. I love it. But it doesn't mean I know everything there is to yet. And that's the key word, is yet. Because eventually, I want to be a household name. When people think of this, they think of me. And that's what I really want towards the end of it. Right now, I just want to show people the thing I love, doing what I love, and sharing it with everyone else. There is decent money to be made in it, sure, but people aren't going to go and ask for a Stallman's Forge knife over, say, K-Bar or Smith & Wesson, something like that, because it's readily available, and most people want handcrafted quality with Walmart prices. It's true, they do. I mean, why pay me $400 to hand forge this for you when you can go to Walmart and buy a $80 SOG? I mean, they work. I mean, I guess Gerber. I've had more failures with those while I was deployed than I did with anything else. But to be fair, I was using it for everything. So, I mean, it did its job. I just didn't take care of it, which is an excellent point. Most people who like the readily made stuff don't take care of it because they didn't pay that much for it. So, in their mind, it's not as important to take care of as, say, something that charged you like $600 for something.
Alright, that shoulder moved way up. Let's mark it. Alright, so that's where that piece comes back in.
But like I said, it's way easier to go ahead and just machine all this into shape and then proceed to do all the treatments to it to make sure it's strong and flexible. If that's what it's for. I mean, each type of knife has a different method, a different steel that's used. You could make any knife you want out of all these different steels, but each knife lends itself to a specific type of steel that's more hard or more tough, so the sharpness can go up or down. Exactly. A lot of my tools right now, I can't contain them in the house because that would mean I'd have to take most of the shit out and put it in my house. And let me tell you, I wouldn't stream nearly as often as I'm planning to if I had to move everything from inside back to out here.
Let's get you out.
Come on. There. clean work surface is a very good one. Now, when you're using your anvil, you want to make sure that you're using just about every inch of it. Oh, too far up. Too cold. Now, when I'm making the tang, I'm compressing that steel down so it becomes fatter, which makes it harder to keep hot. Because with the cold surface still being fairly cold, it's warming up. It'll suck all that out. Yes, this chat is lovely. I love the fact that it's stabby. But, all in all. Machetes, it's also important for a bladesmith to know how his knives function. If I made a chopping knife without really understanding the dynamics of how a chopping knife operates, I wouldn't make a very good one. I saw that Blackout was here, Vash is still here. Cool. Adamantine, the Killing Joke. Now, I'm not particularly worried too much right now about the shoulders. I do need to thin this out a bit more. And that'll, when you take something like that that's squished and you start thinning it back out again, it'll lengthen, which is not bad per se. I might have to cut off the back end of it, or I might have to rework it in such a way that it won't be a hindrance to me when I try to put a handle on it or a guard or anything else. Yeah, I don't say that kind of thing. I'm sorry, Bash. I don't say those that characters and letters that you just asked me to. I'm sorry. Buy me a power hammer and I'll say whatever you want. Slowly but surely. This fucking heavier crossbeam makes me love my wood handle gun because it's not as rough on the hand. But still. Well, it's kind of hard to look the camera in the eye when I have to angle it down at what I'm working at. Come on, you. Alright, go back to fattening it out, thinning it down. It's always a process of lengthening or thickening. Take that as you will. Because I'm not going to drop that off and go to the belt grinder with it still so hot. Do I do anything other than blades? Yeah, I've done small stuff. I mean, this isn't that impressive of a hook, but it'll work for somebody hanging something up. It's not very decorative. I'm not what I would call an arty smith, or an artistic smith. I used to do chainmail, but chainmail is so time consuming and such a pain in the ass in the fingers. I did butted mail, which is the cheapest and fastest method of doing chainmail, versus riveted, which I'd have to do here and do it hot and one link at a time. much like butted melt, but with butted melt, I just take 2 ends at the steel and make it neat. That's it. Riveted, welded, fuck, that's a lot of work. But we might do that in time. But there's other small stuff I try to do. I play around with making nails. I ain't got any that are worth showing. But it's just how it goes. On the other side, call it good. So that's the purpose of your cross beam, is to make those small indentions in it. Essentially, I'm making ridges and valleys that when I start hammering it flat, the metal tries to straighten itself out. Like there's a whole chemistry to, well, it's metallurgy, but there's a whole chemistry to how steel is made up. My anvil's moved, that's no good. I gotta chain this sucker. Ugh. That or nail it down. So when my buddy made me my anvil stand out, it's a tree that fell last year. He didn't cut it very even. I didn't have the time or the means to straighten it out. So there's that. It's very important you keep a good strong grip on your tongs, especially when you're doing something like this, because I could feel the tongs wiggling around the material, and that could go very poorly for me. Should it escape the tongs and go flying, you'll get a sense of where you can keep it. As you saw there, it was very loose. Because should it go out, it has a good chance of hitting me. Now with it hitting me, it might bounce off faster than it can burn me. I still might get very well burned. I think it's time for some water. You should always be hydrating. This is my fucking work hydro flask. It stays in here because it gets really cold, and I like having some ice cold water when I work. If we ever get to a point where I can get a lot of these ready to be quenched, I'll do some, I'll put it on the stream eventually when I get there. It's a very slow process. I only got a couple of days at a time maybe to actually work on these. So I like taking my time with them. The longer I take, the better I can probably do. And that's, quite honestly, what I'm looking for when I make this stuff. Take my time, look for my mistakes, and get better at it. What are you trying to be? What are you trying to be? Who knows, maybe this will be a chopping blade. Like one of those chopping blades you see on the chopping channel. Copper, iron, and silver nitrate is what steel is comprised of, I think. There's actually a lot of other stuff that goes into it. Because your iron is your main source, and it can have other minerals leached into it. You also have, like, there's sometimes you find steel with cobalt in it. You find steel with gold in it. Sometimes. It's not always. These impurities can actually lend to different metallurgical effects in the steel. Some minerals that are included into your steel can in fact strengthen it or actually weaken it. You don't want to put copper into a forge that you've been forging your steel in, because the copper will oxidize and coat the interior, thus contaminating anything afterwards. You'd have to completely tear out all the insulation, clean everything. So when you're doing copper specifically, you want to make sure you have something separate that's only copper. And you'll never find many people who use carbon steel that is bigger than maybe 99.8, 95%, not 95%, 0.95 carbon. You'll never find 1 point of carbon, like one whole point, because that would make it too brittle, as well as being harder to do, I guess. But high carbon steel is not bad. They do different things, like I would love to do crucible steel, which gets a very good carbon amount, and that's what you find with like the Ulfbert's made out of, a very famous Viking sword that was ridiculously springy. Like you could bend it and have a nice U in it, and when you pulled it away, it straightened back out where it needed to be. But there's also layered steel, pattern welds. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do. It just depends on what you want to do. I mean, what it's going to be used for. Is it going to be display? Because, I mean, making mosaic steel is also a thing. I'm not at the level where I can do a mosaic. Like, different steels, different alloys, different metals in a pattern like that. I'm nowhere near ready to do one of those. Like, I've already started researching what I'll need to do to get my journeyman's papers. I need to make a set of knives, I think about 4 or 5, and then I have to find a master smith to test them. And I have to do a rope cut, I have to chop a piece of wood apart, and then a hair test, and then finally, the most excruciating one, the bend. It has to bend 90 degrees, and then you let it go, and it has to return back to where it was. Now, it can snap after it returns. As long as it can be bent and then returned, it can break from there. And that's considered a passing knife. The torture test is just, it made me sick to my stomach thinking about it. Thinking about spending so many hours slaving over those knives, and then all of a sudden, they can be just destroyed. Now, if any of the knives fail, you fail. So, the knives they test have to survive. And if not, the smith gives you, I think, 2 or 3 more months to fix the knives, not those broken ones, but fix the knives, so you can improve your technique, so you can show that you know what you're doing. And the master's is about the same, but you also have to make a Damascus knife, or a pattern welded knife. Eventually, when we get some money, I'll make a face cam so I can stare at that while you watch me work off the camera. That's a twist. Now, twisting is actually an interesting function, because some knives that you'll see smiths take what we call a twisting tool, which is usually a monkey wrench welded on with an extra bar, and you'll set it on your piece of steel, usually square stock, which is different from your flat stock. And they'll twist that around until it gets to a pattern and halfway untwist. I've done something like that with my buddy at Black Rose Forge. We took a piece of bar and we chiseled into it until we cut through to the other side, flipped it over, did the same. And then we would twist it and then untwist it slowly so it spreads out, which was really neat. I enjoy doing that. And then we did another, which is called the pineapple, where we do the same thing, but we cut it in little squares into it, and then we twist it, which gives it a very interesting texture and appearance. So it's all very fun to experiment with new techniques, different metals. Like Thermonuclear Wasteland sent me a hunk of titanium. Now, I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but if I can get pieces out, I might use them as spacers. which will be pretty neat. It will up the price because it's the first type of titanium I've gotten, so I'm a little attached to it. It's sitting on my desk underneath my pewter Smith my dad got me. Let's see. Tiny Smith, tiny forge makes sense. I'd say a good cam would be the one that's hanging up the anvil. That's not bad. I mean, I don't really have the space above the anvil right now to do that, but I'll keep that in mind when we move shops. Yeah, I could get one that where you could see specifically that. That's going to be a lot of camera work. I'm going to need a crew with all these suggestions. Well, I'll start somewhere. Yeah, you're fine. I mean, shoot. Send me a Discord message with all your suggestions. I'll look through them. I'll implement them as I can if they're practical for me at this point. And if they're not, I can always revisit them later. So it's not that big of a thing. Like, I still got to get where I can make some brass knuckles for the Killer Joke. I got a crucible now. I just need to build a spot where I can heat the crucible to the right level. And I still have to find the brass that I intended to use on it, which was brass I collected from when I was in Afghanistan that I spent. There we go. She's getting there now. Alright, some more tunnel work, and we'll move on to the top. I also have to get reused to being in front of a camera again. Needless to say, these aren't excuses, these are just, hey, this is what it is. That's better. A little wobble's not that bad. It can be, but it's not right now. I'll eventually chain this down to the stump, or I'll spend the money and buy an actual anvil stand. Like my propane tank's starting to freeze up a bit. Another trick, when your propane tank starts to freeze, submerge it in a little bit of water. Knocks it right out. Awesome. Yoda is my IT guy, so that could be a thing. And if you're not busy, Yoda, I'll after the stream I'll talk to you about that website. This is a good moment to teach us. Alright, so you can see there's a very big difference in the width from the tang to where the body that we haven't touched is. And we've also extended it out just a bit, which is about where we want it. So now, even though it's really ugly looking, I can grip it a lot better with the tongs. So now, we get to do the pseudo exciting part. Figure out what kind of knife we're making. Now, as I get better at it, I will probably pre-plan all of it and draw it out. I do that with some of the projects, so that way I know exactly where I should be going. Don't know if I need to still use the heavier hammer or not. No, when the tank freezes, it just sputters because now there's less fuel getting to the burner. So it just kind of peters out. Because, I mean, it's already low as it is, it's kind of like, eh. Generally, whenever you're looking inside your forge, you want to pull it out when it's the same color as the interior. It's like a very specific orange. And it's not there yet, because we're just now working on the colder spot than we were when we were doing the tang a minute ago. And yes, I'm still off the camera talking to you. But you always want to make sure your workspace is clean and clear so you can move around your shop easier with a bit more safeness. Safeness, yes, that's a word for stopping torch, safeness. Here, Papa and Squad, I can talk to you guys and still see the color changes, which is really neat. I wish I could show you, but the camera will wash it out and you won't be able to see as much. How about we don't do that, Dell computer. But either way, for the most part, you want to make sure you have everything. Now that I'm able to get in the shop a bit more, I need to start keeping up on tabs of like how much fuel. Like I said, I would love to get a coke / coal forge. It gets really hot really quick, and you have to maintain it. But that's a discipline you'll learn, and you'll get used to seeing colors really quick and knowing about when you should pull them out. Like right now, the very end of the blade, where the would-be blade is currently the interior color of the orange of the forge, and I can see it slowly, gradually trickling back through heat displacement. And it's actually, I wish I could show it better, but it won't show up on camera. I'll have to find a camera that can do thermal or something similar. My knees. Alright, we have a nice top layer of scale buildup. Where is my brush? If you are not ready for something, just throw it right back into the forge and pull it right back out when you're ready again. Cleaning off your workspace is always an important factor. So right now, I'm working on getting a tip sort of started. Like I said, the tip of this blade is not very well cut due to my own ignorance and inability. But I can start to figure out about where I want the point to be. And with a lot of blades, the point where it is very important for the structural integrity of the blade. Now, some knives have a straight spine from the back to the point. Some have a clip, some have a dip. It really depends on what you're making. tip is, usually we want it center line, depending on the knife, center line with your handle. So it runs like the tip of the knife is in the middle of your hand, almost, in that line. I don't know what this is going to be yet, so I don't know where I want the tip to end. So it'll take a minute to kind of see where I want it to go. But it's an adventure. Like on my Discord, seek the perfection in steel. Code on what is best in life. Stuff like that. Now with some of these, you gotta do what I don't like to do, which is hammer back towards myself. Because my tongs don't have a backstop for this tang, so it could easily slide out, which would be a bad time. As Vosh so aptly put it, would be no bueno. Oh, of course. I mean, anything you use. I've had people ask really dumb questions before, like, is blood a good cooling substance? And the answer is, fuck no. It's never a good substance to use. There's too many impurities in blood, too much uncontrolled contents in blood. So the historical aspect of that is probably someone got stabbed breaking into a smith shop and got stabbed with a half-made weapon or knife and died. And then they claimed that was a sword forged in blood. But that's all hearsay. You make your own decisions. Alright. Oh, cool. We got 5 people watching. Wow. That's awesome. Alright, back to it. That'd be neat. Something like that. Oh, this is just soapstone. It's really nice. It doesn't really burn off in the forge. Not as bad. It's just like, I think it's just basically chalk. I can't remember what soapstone it's actually made of. I will stab people with blood and forge it to help kill my foes. Wow. I don't know, it probably wouldn't. Not really. Everybody talks about how many humans it would take to make a weapon. The vast amount of people that you would need to dredge and then pull all the minute, shitty iron out of their blood. Forge it, introduce more carbon to it, and then see how it goes. I mean, that's up to you. I honestly don't know. I'm not what I would call a scientist. I mean, I guess I could consider some science here. There's a lot of science in it. I just don't know the science. Like that. That's nice. Turn down the fire right here. I'm getting fucking hungry. Should have breakfast. Blah. Blah, I say. I need more coffee. Shit, I need an intern. Who wants the intern to bring me coffee? what that means, Bunny. No idea. No idea what that means at all. Making a San Francisco waft 60%. 6% of what? Oh, okay. Maybe if I'm lucky, I can convince Nuke to actually make that jig for me. Alright, so while I work the tip down, you'll see there's like a fish mouth starting there. I gotta eventually find a way to close that. If I have some flux nearby, I might be able to attempt a forge weld. I won't, but we will attempt it. Eventually. One day. When I have a different forge. My buddy was using that for all his forge welding. And forge welding, when you're using your flux, is horribly destructive to the inside of the insulation, the fire brick, because you're making a molten glass from it. Usually, you'll use like a borax. I mean, I find that to be really useful to use as a flux. There's different ones made from more concentrated materials and chemicals, all powder, and those work really well. The flux does facilitate a good weld. You're a little drunk, aren't you, buddy? But with that, sorry, I got off track. With the flux welding, it's much like how a welder will weld. But the stick has all the flux hardened onto it, so whenever he hits it and starts welding, it creates that seam. And with welds, that flux will go through the spaces and make a bonding agent that it melts the steel together, creating that. So when you're forge welding, you want to make sure you're hammering good to make sure all the air pockets that form inside and in between all the slabs of steel or whatever you're making actually gets those out, so it facilitates a good weld. You'll know if you didn't, because when you pull it out, it'll be blurred out. You'll see visible seams. Where it didn't do anything, you'll see pockets. And let me just tell you, flux burns suck. Fair enough. But, so whenever you get the flux and it doesn't form right, I'm going to use my hands as a symbol. So this is your slabs, your billet of steel. So a good weld will be like that. Nice, you can see the visible differentiations of the different differentiating metals. But if you have a poor weld, you'll see something like that form in it, or at the worst case, like this in the inside. That's where the metals didn't even meet because the air pockets were there, causing a cool spot, which forced the weld to be, well, bad. So you would have to reheat, reflux it, and make sure you hammer everything out. And you have to be careful with it so you don't upset the other welds. Because while it's still very freshly welded, you can fuck it up. But it's a teachable moment in any young smith's life. Like right now, I'm trying to make as little of a fish mouth as I can, which is coming out pretty well from where it was a minute ago. So it's smaller. What I'm doing is hammering the points that I make when I make these angles on it, and I'm trying to bring those shoulders that it's creating on the top down, like little fucking cat ears, and bring those down to a nice rounded point to it. And then from there we can work on making it more angular and finding that tapering that will happen. I use borax for flux, yes. It's very useful. I mean, I can't really say I wouldn't. And welcome, Ari. R-Y-I-N-O. Oh, wino! Welcome. Oh, cool. We got 6 people now. That's neat. But anyway, so whenever you're doing your pattern welds, you want to make sure it's nice, flat. You want to make sure the metal's clean before you start the actual forge welding, because even the smallest thing that gets in the way of the flux can cause a bad weld. Ugh, need a drink. Rhino! But thank you, Rhino. But yeah, so you want to make sure everything's clean, like when you have patina like this. This is why I'd rather have the coke forge for forge welding, because patina doesn't build as bad, in my opinion. Now there's some who swear by it, and there's those who don't. Good spot right here. Alright, so that fish mouth is still there, but it's getting very, very close to being not there, which is what we want. Now, working at that angle, hunched over and overhanded, it's a little harder for me to gauge about where I'm hitting it. That's inexperience, and eventually I'll get good at it. But until then, we'll just have to make do. Well, such is life, Bunny. Everything has its time and place. All right, we're about there with that. Now, what I'm going to attempt to do is make a 2-ended point, one side, and we'll make a dagger-like knife out of it. That's where I'm feeling this going. Will it be amazing? Hell no. Will it be good enough? Good enough for now. Well, I had an Etsy, or still have one, but no one was really interested in it because, well, obviously I wasn't very well known. but you can order from my Facebook store. You just commission me for it. So DMs are fine and so on. But remember, you're going to be on the bottom of all my projects lists because I owe people other stuff. But you don't pay me until the end, because that way I work on my own timetable and not your own. Mostly because, yeah, it takes a while. I'm working on that one, buddy. They haven't got back to me about building it up. I think I might have to get 3/4 to help me with it. I think Aesop's too busy at the moment. We're getting there. We only been running for an hour and a half. That's not bad. 6 people liking it. 7 liked it. We have 2 check rate. I don't know what any of this means, but yeah. So that's good enough. Small streams are good as just as good as big ones. And eventually, who knows? We might grow. We may not. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah, I still have to get photos and stuff of the work and my portfolio and stuff. That's the biggest problem. Like, I got the domain name for solventsforge.com for like 5 years or so. Burning some hair off. Yes, it's actually very hard for me to remember to take photos or even set my camera up to take a series of photos, because I tend to forget. Much like with my portfolio, I tend to forget to take a picture before I send it out. And then it's hard as hell to get a hold of the customer to get them to send me a photo of it. And usually it's so low quality of a photo, I can't use it. Such has been the curse thus far. We're up to 53 degrees in here. Outstanding. You missed the beginning and some explanations, Yorkie. But other than that, not a whole lot. Welcome. fought him off with a bottle, and sadly, the victim was my hot coffee. You're right, you're right. I knew they were a little too hairy to be regular SWAT team. Something just didn't sit right. Alright. Shit. Stuff like that happens quite more often than you'd think. Ah. Hit that hard concrete now and lost a lot of that heat. That's a pain in the dick. Fuck. What do I want to eat for lunch? Dinner. I got some hot wings, yeah. Yeah, thanks, Fesh. If you like what you see, hit the like button and ring that bell. Also, don't forget to subscribe. I guess that matters now. Also, I guess likes matter now, someone told me. Somehow. But yeah. Alright, we're ready. Fuck yeah. Alright. Looks like we got another twist coming. Gold. In she goes. And that's why you're not in the Armored Corps, Yorkie. That's why you're not in the Armored Corps. So this will be my first dagger tip, I guess I would call it. So you get to learn with me. Well, hopefully I don't get any dislikes, but if I do, so be it. Alright, so as you see, slowly but surely we're getting there. doesn't take a long time. If I was pressed to do it, if I had to do it all in one take, it'd take me about 14 hours to finish a knife. Just about. That's including not having to go back and redo a lot. That is the minimum time I've ever finished a knife, 14 hours. And that was spread over 2 days. Hello, everybody. Melon Smithers. Oh. I don't think I've met Mel, so. Yeah. Well, welcome. Nice to meet you. Hope you enjoy it. You do you, Melon. Wow, we got 9 viewers. Holy crap. Damn. It's better than what I usually do. I think my all-time highest was like 20-something, I think. Maybe. I think that was back when I was working with Andy in his shop. There we go. I think, for the most part, we're in the clear with that fish mouth. Awesome. So, I see a small spot where we have an irregular cut there. That should come out pretty easy. But we finally got that fish mouth completely gone, so now we got to start profiling the tip better. So we're going to move on to that. Again, that is, if you got to that point and you're like, I would like to take it to the grinder. You could, after it cools down, of course. And then once you get it there, you can profile it more with the grinder. I recommend a jig to make it easier. Hello, Melissa. Kill Moose, welcome. So welcome. It's nice to have everyone here. Holy shit, we have 10 concurrent viewers. Damn. We're getting there, everybody. Oh man, big time coming. Yeah. Okay. But either way, we're getting there. With the tip, I mean. So now we just need to start focusing it down a bit better. Go. Don't want to run my fingers across that, that's for sure. Too cold. Now, while I work this tip, because it's such a rounded shape, I have to remember to angle it up to start hammering flat spots so I can slowly crimp it down to that nice crisp line, or as crisp as I can get it right now. And do the same and keep it even, because what I know about making a dagger point, what little I know, I should say, is that I need to start slowly working it down to that triangular shape and try to keep it as even as possible. Yeah, you're right, Rhino. I'm not juggling hot metal though, so you're just out of luck there. Stalvin's karaoke. Nah. You might hear me mumble and grumble after a while, after I start getting really into this, and hear me talk to myself, or sing poorly when I listen to music when I'm streaming. But such is the life. Can't be great at everything. So they say. Alright. Looks like we need to work on this one. Slowly but surely getting there. I need to bring it back on one side more towards the center. I can't sing very well. It's one of those I have to do it in the spur of the moment things. It's one of those, I gotta feel it. I can't sing on demand, sadly. I'm hungry as shit. Don't know what I have, but I think those hot wings I have left over from last night will be it. Bunny, who told you that lie? This is YouTube. We just gotta get them their money and they give us our money until they fuck us. Like a fist in the ass. I can't honestly stand YouTube, but it's a good platform to start on. Into our first problem with this first run of the dagger. So, as you can probably see, one side is a bit readier on the other side. So we're going to try to figure out how to get this to where it needs to be without further causing a slight deviation. Now, as I've said multiple times, should you want to take it to a grinder, you could. As of course, I apparently have to say now, wait for it to cool down enough to handle, and if you have the time or the money, get a jig. Oh, YouTube could blow it out my ass, because I know who owns them, and I know who owns the people that own them. And honestly, they're not making the company much money. I wouldn't be surprised soon if that gets dumped off on someone else. You heard me right, Susan. I know the memos. But either way, back to what we're doing. There we go. We're getting there. We're getting there. Ridges, move on again. D-Live? I didn't know they had a band function. I'm sure. There's no real place for anyone to go anymore. If you don't toe the line. Oh, if you're not a part of the clique. We've been going almost 2 hours now. That's more than I thought I would do. Besides, I don't think they want me. It's a classic. Classic. I like my women with tits. and the jeans. Alright, so we have the rudimentary start of this. So we've gotten about closer to being even. Still got some ridging to work out because it's thicker here than the rest of the metal now because we smooshed it. So, throw this back in. I'm going to change out hammers again. You'd be surprised how often you end up changing out hammers. Now, for now, my best tool for smoothing ridges is a ball peen. I'm not using the ball peen on it to spread out the metal. I'm using the flat surface of this to slowly smooth the surface of the metal. It works surprisingly well. I don't have a flatter, so that's the best I can do for now. Because I wrote my name on my own apron because I was working with a shop with another smith, and I have this mostly pulled tight enough to fit me well. It bunches up in a lot of spots. It makes me look like I have a bigger beer belly than I do. Another reason you want to clean your metal is because scale flies off randomly and it doesn't technically hurt, it stings because it's still fucking retarded hot. Why thank you, I suppose, I guess. Bunny just wants me for my body. Not really. It'd be lonely, but yeah. So the flames are way back here, but even right here, I can feel it on my open hand, how hot it is. People think that a lot of this is like not that hot. That forge is probably about close to 2,000 degrees in the inside. Close. Am I milking it? Am I really, though? I'm not an e-thought, guys. Jesus Christ. Damn. Yeah, propane's getting a little frosted. Okay. Alright. Yeah. Hopefully that doesn't get any worse. So you can see as it gets that nice triangle starting to form, you see one side still a little bit more over it than the other. And it'll take time to get that worked in. I might let this cool down, and then when it gets colder, take it to the grinder and kind of straighten her out a little bit. I kind of want to keep that roughly where it's at. Yeah, so. And now I can see my propane tank is getting a little cold. It's starting to freeze up on me. Yes, I know my ass is in the way. But I placed it here just so I could keep it away from stuff. So the entire bottom where I poured in water into the propane's bucket to keep it from freezing, has frozen because there was very little water in there. So when you put in your water into your propane bucket or whatever you're using, make sure you fill it up a little bit higher than usual, than what you would think. Instead of me splashing it, I should have been just constantly keeping it full. I could also hear the propane sputtering, so I know I'm towards the end. With that though, the next stream I'll go right back into working on those, what, we got 4 or 5 knives now? It's always good to have a couple extra ones in there, just so you have something to constantly be working on, so you're not stopping as long as I have been when I was waiting on that one. Would make him a lot of money being shirtless. Yeah, no. I've had to hammer, basically, dude, but boots and gloves and an apron. One piece of hot slag from the fucking forge weld taught me otherwise. I had a nice little red mark from my throat about down to halfway to my navel. Was not fun. So I don't do that as often as I can. With that said, though, thank you for coming to the stream. If you have any questions while I wind down and kind of relax for a moment, go ahead and field your questions and I'll answer them to the best of my ability, or I will redirect you to a source of knowledge that I can, provide. Oh, you want me to pull out the drawl? There was a little bit of walk in there. I talk with a flat monotone so people can understand me better. It's habitual habit, so it's hard to get back my drawl. Now, if y'all want to hear it, that's a different story. This has been Stalvin at Stalvin's Forge. If you have any real questions, I'd be more happy to oblige. But let's get into your questions if you have any. If not, we're going to end the stream right here. Call it good for now. If you can dodge molten metal, you can dodge a ball. Yeah, you could. That's a true statement. If you can dodge molten metal, you could definitely dodge a ball. So, got a punch, so he does. If anything y'all need to know, if not, it's been lovely having y'all here, and y'all have a good one. You got about 10 seconds before I close her down. Yeah, that's not fun either. When I did some welding, getting spalled falling on you is never fun at all. When I get better at my craft, I plan to take at least 2. So that way if one can't make it, I still have another on standby. And once I start teaching, I'll have, I guess, 3 total maybe. It depends on the size of the shop when I get to that point.
And once I do, y'all be happy to know I'll be there teaching and showing you how they're doing. And occasionally I'll still have my master class, I suppose you could call it, where I do some work and you get to watch the stream from that. Well, that was the only good question I had. So y'all have a great one. It's been fun. So from here, starting forward says, y'all have a good one now.